So good afternoon and welcome everybody to this month's Grid Talk. And this month we're going to be talking all things estate management and the sort of data and the insights that are particularly important for that sort of use case context. And delighted to be joined by Jeremy from Provelio. We'll introduce Jeremy properly in a second. But yeah, let's get going. I'm just going to sort of set a little bit of context for those of you that are not familiar with the Grid Talk series. So essentially, we run these events monthly, if not twice monthly, occasionally, and the whole sort of spirit of this series was essentially to share best practice, interesting practice. We particularly like it when we're joined by a friend, external client, a friend, external of the business. To get essentially different insights from around the user community. So that's the whole ethos of the Grid Talk approach. And as I say, this month we're going to dive right into this topic of estate management, PMOs and the oversight of. And in some ways, this is a kind of variation for us because this won't be exploring method grids per se. Rather, we'll be joined by a partner, Provelio. And to give a little bit of background actually on Provelio, before Jeremy does it properly, has been a long-standing partner of Method Grid. In fact, I think Provelio was one of the first companies, Jeremy, to do some of the beta testing before we even incorporated as a company many years ago, and has been a sort of a friend of the firm ever since. So really, this is an opportunity for us to point the camera on Provelio and let them, have a bit of an opportunity to talk about their services. And I called up with Jeremy and the chair of Provelio, Paul Wilson, some months back, and just reminded me of some of the great work they're doing in this space. And it's such an expert sort of hotspot for them that I thought it'd be interesting for us to get a view as to what you guys are up to and what you're currently working on. So. Yeah, that's the sort of the high level ethos of the series. We always sort of trail the next event for people that come to multiple events, and the next one actually is really opening up what's been a major release for us this year, which is the account level portfolio Gantt feature that went actually live last week. So we're going to really sort of step through that release and the kind of the power of it and what you're able to do with that new aspect of the platform. So that's kind of December's Grid Talk. For those of you who are completely new to who we are, Method Grid, just to position us at the very least so you understand the context of where we're coming from, I think we'd probably say high level 3 aspects. Well, firstly, our client base is very much in the sort of AEC world, or large scale sort of public guardians of large capital programs of work, so the sort of network rails of this world, as well as the sort of some of the logos you can see there. We're very much a platform centric business. The Method Grid platform, we would say in a nutshell, is a sort of a very designed integration of knowledge management and project management, and essentially allows organizations that are running those large scale portfolios to develop their kind of corporate playbooks such that they can use those to deliver and assure that body of work. And as an adjunct to our platform, we also have an adjunct professional services team that's dealing with all components of the kind of capability build that would wrap around that, essentially upskilling large communities of practice to deliver consistent, high quality programs of work. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. Just to give us a little moment, a glow in the sun. We're coming to the back end of the year, and delighted that the work we've been doing has been recognised in multiple kind of national awards this year. So just to have a little kind of moment of self glow, but also to say a huge thank you to all of our clients that have been involved in that, because all of those awards represent collaborations we've had with our clients during the year in that realm of work. Final sort of context, I guess, setting slide is, and there is a link even though we're not talking about Method Grid today, there is still a link here to the Provelio case we're going to get into. But fundamentally, I guess if we had to summarize the commonality across our kind of user base, our clients, would be that when you're delivering a large scale portfolio of work, is that the variation of that service delivery is too high, is a kind of very high level commonality across that base. The manifestation of that is very idiosyncratic, unique to individual firms, but it tends to be one of those 1 to 8 you see there. Fundamentally a lot of will reinvention. We're not as optimized as we could be. We're not essentially making use of our underlying IP asset, et cetera. But I guess to say for the Grid Talk today, we're probably really diving a bit into number 5, which is, our oversight of a capital program of work or portfolio is just not where it should be. And Jeremy is very much going to bring that to life in the context of the estates management arena. And if that is a sort of a definition of some of the common problem statements, I guess what we would then say is, look, our world then is best looked at through those 4 lenses you see below there, the 4 pillars. And we usually talk about this before we jump into a Grid Talk to sort of describe where we are going to concentrate the Grid Talk today. But as I say, we're not talking specifically about MetaGrid today, but I still think probably the category here is, we're not talking about how you deliver or the consistency of a methodological approach to delivery. We're talking really about the inherent residual risk that remains and how data and insights can really, really help you with that sort of inherent risk, again, as particularly pertains to the estates management context. So as I say, that tends to be a sort of stepping off point into what we're going to talk about. But I think probably pain symptom number 5 and pillar number 4 are the 2 kind of key categories here. So without further ado, just to again say huge welcome and thanks for joining us, Jeremy. But do you want to talk with a little bit about Provelio and your role with it?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Dom. So I'm the managing director of Provelio. Back in the day, it's quite a few years ago now, I did actually join as a standard regular project manager. So I've come up through the business and I now run it and own part of it. And what we've got, Dom and attendees on the call, is we've got quite a unique blend of experience and expertise in Provelio, because fundamentally what we are is we're a management consultancy around the built environment. So we have all of that really detailed, embedded expertise around project and portfolio management, about estates management. And we've overlaid that onto an expertise that maybe quite a few other consultants don't have, which is all around digitization and data management of the estate. We've got a strand within the business that developed their skills and their understanding, actually developing large estates-based. Well, it was actually organisational-based costing models within the MOD. So what the team originally did was develop large data-driven analysis around big chunky decision making within the overarching estates review at the time, around MOD, of moving bases from Canada to Oman and taking troops out of Germany, and we developed all of the thinking and the modelling tools behind those real strategic decision making. And what we've done is we've taken all of that experience and expertise and now developed a decision making and analytical approach and platform to apply exactly those principles on a civil estate, large and small, but yeah. So that's really a bit about us and kind of where our journey and how we've arrived at this point and kind of have got into this really exciting, interesting area of the industry that, quite frankly, is just growing day on day with the further development of AI and starting to embed those kind of engines into this kind of approach. So no, we're really excited in a kind of intellectual way to be part of this journey, and we're finding out that they can do some fantastic things with some big kind of clients that do have a lot of resource and money tied up with their estate.
No, great. I think, when I caught up with you guys recently, I mean, I think your position as a business is clearly so apposite for this topic. It's kind of where you guys have been working for years, if not decades, and I think clearly you're making a lot of investment now in this sort of the development of your own digital platform to support your clients in this area. I think that's what's going to be really interesting for people for us to dive into. Before we sort of get into it specifically, and obviously, you're going to open up the platform and show people around it. I guess to ask this sort of entry question of what was the sort of problem statement though that you felt initially you were addressing? I mean, why even invest in this area? What was it that was
so what we're finding is estates have always been a crucial part of every large organisation. In a lot of organisations, it's quite often the second largest cost after people, especially in big organisations such as universities, where the single largest cost is people, because they're a very people-based educational, but they also need very large estates to house their operations, to house their people, to be able to deliver their services. And over the last kind of 5-8 years, there's been a bit of a perfect storm with regards to a massive increase in cost of running estates. There's been really big pressures with those kind of sectors on how to get more for less. It's that kind of classic government mantra about, within the NHS, how you drive efficiencies in within big sectors such as universities, other big estate owning organisations. And then overlaid on that, you've got this really, really fantastic development of technology and the way that you can actually derive real insight and value from the data that all these organisations have, but they don't know what to do with. There's that classic expression around data rich and an analyst for, and that's really the key problem that we were trying to grapple with and really help our clients with. Because what we found is there's a lot of really rich data in running a very, very expensive part of your business, which is your estate. But it all tends to be in very disjointed, siloed systems that don't join up. And what that means is decision makings are made on either flawed or incomplete pictures of the consequences of those decisions and the benefits of those decisions. So that really took us on this journey to develop this approach and this platform to be able to help organisations join up all of these data sets to get a much more holistic, in-depth insight into how their estates work, how they can use those decisions to really supercharge and drive their business forward in both challenging times and growth times. There are so many different challenges with how you best use your estate as a business enabler, not as just some kind of slight black box kind of cost that just the organisation has to grapple with, instead of actually just suck as much value out of it as possible. That's the kind of crux of it, I guess, Dom.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I guess in some ways, it's sort of almost, it's by necessity moved from a sort of operational tactical consideration to, fundamentally, a much more strategic one. No, fantastic. I think that's a good segue then, Jeremy. And this is probably an opportunity to bounce into your platform. But I guess jump into your actual platform. It'd be good to do it through the lens of specific kind of use cases, executive kind of challenges. I know we had a pre-discussion. You mentioned a few, but I guess let's start maybe with an obvious one, which is, if you're just running an estate's kind of PMO, you've got a complex kind of asset portfolio there. You've probably got certainly finite and probably quite constrained funds to kind of stay on top of that asset. So I guess one is just sort of supporting scenario analysis around where to invest money in a kind of complex estate portfolio.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me just grab the presentation. So is that good to go?
Yeah.
You can see that, yeah, brilliant. So this is the platform, and this is a live model of an estate with a dummy data set in it, because obviously we have confidentiality and what have you. But but the data set is derived from a live estate. So this is kind of a real life example in that context, and really kind of talking to your kind of question posed on that. The way that this platform works is it's broken into fundamentally two sections. You've got your estate analytical platform, which looks at your estate, it looks at how it's run, it looks through different lenses, so you can really start to get that in-depth understanding of how you use your estate, where the space utilization is good and bad, what kind of carbon is generated, what your maintenance burdens are. And these are just the lenses, depending on the organization. All this platform is doing is overlaying more and more rich data into it. So if we were like, this is an education estate that I'm showing you at the moment, but if we were to look at, I don't know, a shopping mall or something, then you could overlay lease break clauses, you could overlay revenue incomes, so depending on the context of the building, this is applicable across sectors. So although I'm using an educational example, just look at it as a platform to bring all of that rich data within your estate into one platform to make those really informed decisions. And the way it works, I'm currently, as you can see at the top, on the carbon section. And what this model does is suck out real-time data from a lot of disjointed systems, so finance systems, carbon systems, where quite often large estate organisations are capturing carbon, but if not, we can put in algorithms and generators within the platform, so that if we know the electricity bills, we can then back calculate carbon production. And what it does basically, just as down the right hand side here, you can see your electricity, your gas usage, your carbon production. You've got here a little table, carbon tons per building number, and it's totally interactive. So you can just click on a building and it tells you exactly how much electricity, how much gas, how much carbon, so that you can just start to get a very insightful, intuitive view on all of your buildings through the lens of carbon. You can then drill behind it. We've got a series of sheets with a more detailed breakdown. So again, this is exactly the same lens, so the carbon lens. And again, you can see there the split between gas and electricity across your building stock. So you can, if you're talking on starting to understand what your decarbonisation strategy is, you can start to then really get into the depth of, well, do we look to degas, increase our electricity, and then the decarbonisation of the grid assists us, or do we heat our buildings through gas or electricity? So you can really start to get those insightful views. And again, it's just totally interactive. So this gives you everything at the click of a button in a single platform.
Just out of interest,
yeah,
I know, obviously this is live with a number of your clients, but you talked about the sort of fragmented, siloed data environment. Well, I mean, what sort of, I guess, what are you finding? How many, how sort of broad is that kind of set of separate data sets? How many typically are you having to bring in to create that sort of integrated
so
picture?
the typical data sets that we find that are of interest to our clients tend to be their maintenance burden, their carbon production, their compliance, because obviously they want to understand their legal position, and then their space utilization. So how are they using their buildings?
Yeah.
So those tend to be what we would think of as the core pillars for understanding your estate. And then on top of that, it's really whether there are any business specific ones. I mentioned kind of if you're a business where you're deriving kind of income out of your business in a direct way, out of your buildings in a direct way, you may want to start overlaying different income streams. But the core estate's one of those four, and that this example shows those four. So if I just jump onto compliance, just to show a different lens, and how you can really start to get that in-depth analysis. So again, the same estates, and basically, so this is your overall compliance rating. So you can start, so overall compliance rating. So you've got your different compliance ratings, and you just click on it, and it starts. You can just see the distribution of your different compliance issues on your buildings. And again, so you just go back into the detailed screen behind it. And again, so you've got your compliance rating by category, so you can very quickly see where your high risk categories are. So is it electricity compliance, gas compliance, all of those kind of things. You've got compliance rating by number of buildings, so you can see which your highest offenders as far as which buildings you need to focus on for your compliance. So this just gives you that really intuitive single platform to look at the estate through all those different lenses.
I know we're obviously looking at some dummy data here, Jeremy, but have you got an example where this kind of integrated data kind of presentation has actually, enabled a decision, particularly in the context of sort of
yeah, absolutely, and it's a common client of both of ours, Tom. I know that, and it was on your logos at the beginning. So Oxford Brookes University, which I know you know well, so they have a program where they're looking to consolidate their organisation. So they're looking to close a couple of campuses and consolidate from 4 to 2. And they've used this platform to do exactly the kind of analytical thinking that I'm just talking through now, where they're really looking at which buildings they have on each campus, how they can move their different faculties, their education around, and then so you can, and I'll touch on the scenario engine in a sec. So once you understand the estate and how best to intervene in it, do we knock that building down? Do we refurb that building? Do we close this campus? That then generates a scenario, a series of interventions, a series of projects. And you may have half a dozen different scenarios that you want to look at. And the other aspect of this platform is then very much the scenario engine where, so it's a good segue if I just...
Yeah, maybe this is the segue, jump into the scenario engine.
Yeah. So if I just share again and jump into a different screen. So this is the other aspect of the same model. So this is what we call the scenario engine, and basically we've got a number of playbooks embedded in this scenario engine. I think you use the similar term for your own platform, where basically there's data sets embedded in this scenario engine, where we can, so when you put in a series of different projects, you enter in the project data, and it will calculate from the project data that you put in what the reduction in your maintenance burden is, how it affects your space, how it reduces carbon, how it increases your compliance. So basically what you can do, so this is one scenario, and if I just show you how it differs. So sorry, just on the base scenario, you can see in the key statistics section here, you've got an investment across those are all projects on the Gantt chart. So you've got 60 million quid over 39 buildings and 39 projects, so one project per building. And on the right hand side here, it shows you the benefits that you're deriving. So it's going to drive down your maintenance burden from 171 million to 111. It doesn't change your space, because in this scenario, you're not doing anything with space. You've got a very marginal decarbonisation, kind of just a couple of things in there, but it does increase your compliance up to 100%. So this intervention scenario is very much around reducing maintenance and increasing compliance. However, if I go to option 2, which is a different series of projects over different timelines, it's a much larger investment. We're now looking at almost £150 million. However, you've got much greater maintenance benefits, so it's driving out from 171 to 55 million. You've actually reduced your space, because in this scenario, I believe that you demolish a building, but you have a much larger decarbonisation benefit. And again, it drives your compliance up to 100%. So what this is a platform that you can. So this is a sandbox environment using the real estates data that we were just looking at, where you can then just run scenarios and do different interventions and understand different benefits for the cost. And we're looking at this with a couple of NHS trusts as well, because what they see is a real value, because the NHS trust, like a lot of big organisations, is very strictly governed, especially in larger programs all around business case and optioneering. So this just gives them that tool in a very visual, clear way to run different options and to be able to very clearly articulate the benefits that you're driving from those options.
Yeah, particularly, I guess it gets really complex with the multivariant nature of it as well. I guess relatively straightforward to take that sort of data and feed it into an overarching sort of NPV type analysis where you're comparing different scenarios in that that ultimate regard.
Absolutely. So, and just on that, so again, a bit like the last kind of section of the platform, we've got pages behind here. So your different scenarios, we can suck out the cash flow implications. We can look at spatially exactly where this scenario, so that's a spatial representation of all the projects. It's a little bit small, Don, but that little table is what year the projects are being done in. So again, we've embedded video clipping in here, where a bit like on the Met Office website, when you want to know the next week's weather forecast, and you run the little video clips when it scrolls through the week. This can scroll through a program of works, so you can just visually understand what the implications and impacts are on a live estate.
No.
So those are the kind of, and these are the real life applications that we're now helping our clients with.
No, fantastic. And again, to ask the question, have you? And it may be sort of still a little bit early to have a specific example, but have you seen a client now that's used that engine to, kind of make a strategic call on an investment?
So we're just on the cusp of, so down at Southampton University, we've used the analytical side of the platform to analyse their existing estate, because they've got in front of them, they're literally in the cusp of deciding what their transformational program is. They've got a vision to kind of do some really strategic, meaningful work on their estate and their organisation in the next 10 years. And then what we're going to do is embed their vision of their transformational program along with the maintenance program, along with the decarbonisation program. So we'll give them this exact ability that will then have a baseline program, which is a single source of truth of everything they want to do. And it will give them the ability, because everything changes on a 10-year massive program like that, government policies change, funding criteria change, all of those kind of things. So they'll have that really real-time interactive ability to just look at different optioneering as the program develops. So that's the one client that we're really using this now in anger about.
Got it. And even just taking the carbon remit on its own, I imagine a lot of organisations, Jeremy, would literally just be interested in improving their analytic, on that sort of net zero pursuit. Can you tell us any more about how you're tracking that sort of aspect of the estate?
Absolutely. I think I'd be as bold to say that there are a lot of organisations out there that have signed charters up to becoming net zero with still really no detailed understanding of how they're going to achieve that. And what this platform is enabling to do, and so Oxford Brookes again with their amalgamation and rationalisation of their estates, carbon's been a really big lens that we've looked through with them to really try and understand that whole side of things. And what it does is it starts to provide really meaningful insight within the organisation of the value of the data that they've got now, and how in the future, if they develop that thinking and the way that they capture that data, it can just be even more valuable. So a very, very real life kind of practical example is things like how energy supplies are metered Are they metered at campus level? Are they metered at building level? Do you then break it down into floor level or faculty level? Because those kind of initiatives will really help them fine tune that real understanding of not just how they're going to decarbonise in as much as do we go all electric, do we put heat source pumps in, but a real massive part of that journey is also how they use the buildings. Do we use them efficiently? Are we leaving the lights on, overnight? And, all of that, and all of that real in-depth understanding about how you can drive really valuable insight into your estate through the use of the data and how it's captured has been a real journey that some of our clients are now taking with us.
And I guess the other kind of aspect that's always interesting for any organisation, and particularly I guess in this arena, is just the kind of peer benchmarking. Any kind of measure of just efficiency. You're clearly always very interested to know, what the art of the possible really is. Is it enabling that sort of benchmarking?
It is. It's so in quite a few very stable large industries or sectors, NHS being one of them, university sector being another. The whole sector does annual data returns around estates, and that provides global data sets around things like carbon production, things like space efficiency, things like maintenance burdens. And what this platform's allowed us to do is embed all of that industry-wide data benchmarking to really start getting insight for individual organisations, because they've always kind of looked at this benchmarking data, but quite frankly, Don, they're quite often embedded in very large spreadsheets that haven't really been presented in quite the valuable way that they could. And when you actually start overlaying this kind of insightful platform in a very visual and interactive way, it really brings that benchmarking data to life and makes it much more meaningful.
Yeah, and I think data visualization is such a key kind of aspect, isn't it? Just to enable that easy render, for a busy executive.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. Is there anything else I've got some other questions, Jeremy, but is there anything else in the platform that you wanted to point people to?
I think I've kind of shown the key aspects of it. Like I say, the critical thing, I guess, for me is that that it comes in a kind of two-part kind of platform. That part where you really understand your existing estate, how it works, you get some really in-depth insight into it, and then that gives you the decision-making capability to really start to understand what the high value, what gets you the most bang for your buck as far as interventions go.
No, got it. I think just to ask a few more questions, and then we'll hand over to the floor, see if there's any that come in from the attendees. But I guess, and recognizing again, it's a relatively early system for you. But what are you finding is the challenge of actual implementation? What's the typical experience been, just in terms of as you mentioned, the challenge of kind of bringing together all the disparate data sets? Interested in the human journey of embedding this in a estates office.
No, absolutely. I guess one of the first challenges that we quite often find is organisations are quite often of a very clear opinion that they don't have the data to make this kind of platform valuable, and so you've got to go on a little bit of a journey with them right from the get-go to show them that actually you can't run an estate without they've got a lot more data than they think they have. And a kind of real life example I'd use is quite often big estate owner organisations don't have room sensors in all of their rooms to count the exact number of people that are in that room at any one time, and so therefore they're saying, well, we don't understand how we use our space yet. It'd be lovely to in the future, but we're not quite at that position. And then you talk through about how for example, how their access control is on particular spaces, and quite often for security reasons and things like that, you have card access, kind of Salto or one of those systems. And then you start, okay, so there's a system there that's capturing, you might not know the exact numbers, but you can absolutely understand whether that room's being used 14 times in a day or 4 times in a month. And so developing these platforms with the existing data sets is very much the beginning of a journey. But there is real value from the outset that they can derive from those kind of things. So I think that's one of the main things. And then definitely for some of the larger organisations, NHS trusts, some of the larger universities, it is the most challenging part isn't the technology or even really the data, because we understand how we're going to use that. It's navigating that organisational human side of quite often people are quite protective of the data that they have got. So it's trying to kind of help them on that journey of understanding how actually, if we connect up all these systems, it can be really insightful. So you're absolutely right, Dom, that human journey is such a rich and important part of making this successful. Technology is great, but if the people don't buy into it and use it properly, then it's just another clever bit of technology. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that kind of side of things.
I guess also it'd be interesting to get your perspective and maybe some advice to the seniors, that the leaders of estate management offices. All of this, I suspect, is potentially talking to a slightly different skill set that has traditionally been within an estate management office. I don't know if that's a fair observation, but I guess regardless, question might be what skill sets do you think are becoming particularly kind of pertinent to running an estate?
So I think you're right in one aspect, as in I think kind of there are obviously still the traditional estates kind of approaches and maybe the kind of digitization and the very fast pace of technology is kind of maybe not so much embedded in that kind of psyche in some people, but we're also genuinely pleased and encouraged by you do have quite a lot of bright young things in a lot of estates offices now, and that's fantastic to see that coming through as well. And after saying that, and I don't mean to be disparaging to people of my generation, because I think the value that we see is the intuitive visual nature of the kind of platform that I've shown, and quite frankly, Dom, the method grid platform as well, talking about your own journey, because I think even managers and people that have always managed a certain way, that are quite senior, maybe towards the end of their career, yes, they probably won't invest time into understanding how the tool works. That's for others and for us to provide that expertise or train up new people within organizations. But it's actually very rare that we show them the kind of walkthrough I've just done with you, where at a click of a button, you can just get these insights. You can start to overlay the data sets in a very holistic way. That's really, that does grab people's imagination, because there aren't that many directors of estates out there that don't still grapple with problems on a daily basis, that are quite hungry for just finding things to help them do it better.
No, I got it. Let me ask one final question, and then we'll sort of head over to any that are on the coming from the floor. And actually, for those of you on the call, just to note, you've got the button down on the bottom right there for questions. I can see one that's coming from Rab, so we'll head to Rab's question next. But yeah, just to ask the fairly sort of standard question of our time, just AI, and to what degree you see AI coming into the system you've built here. So
the way that I'm really excited about AI, to be honest with you, because this is a data-driven system. So that's the area of machine learning, really bringing value and speed into the analytical side of massive data sets, be it a large language model or be it data sets in a different way. So where I really see the value in AI and where we can see this ultimately going is, at the moment, the scenario engine that I showed you is really a decision-making tool by manipulating how your estate runs and getting those insights so that you can overlay that thinking to come up with a set of project interventions. Ultimately, where we see this platform going, and quite frankly, probably sooner rather than later, is getting to the point that once you've got this model up and developed, you can actually just ask the model, say, give me the optimized route to net zero in the next 15 years. And it will be the model that then self-generates through the analytical side of all the data sets. Or, I need this estate compliant in the next 3 years, or whatever. So, and in a language base, so you will then start to be able to ask the model in a language kind of way, like you can with ChatGPT and engines like that at the moment. So I see this as a specific model AI engine that will give you the ability to start asking the model to provide you with solutions which you can then look at, understand, and overlay in the context of your organization. So that's the really exciting part. We're not there yet, Dom, but that's really where I see this kind of modeling tool going.
Yeah, I think probably, it sort of naturally lends itself to some kind of NLP interface, doesn't it? That's interrogating that.
Yeah.
No, great, thank you. So let's start with some of the questions. So from Rab, is this built entirely in Power BI, and is there a link to how you apply MethodGrid? Maybe I'll give a quick perspective, Jeremy, and then I'll hand it over to you, because
of course.
As I said up front, we very deliberately this grid talk was an opportunity for our partners Provelio to talk about some of the great work they're doing. I guess from my quick take on that question would be, your platform is very much looking at the sort of the analytic to making either asset maintenance, kind of ops decisions, or capital investment decisions, per your scenario planning. So it's essentially the deciding, which projects to mobilize.
Exactly.
At the point of mobilization, I guess it would be, MethodGrid's apt, and indeed, we've co-implemented on some client sites, but we're about, I guess, the consistency of delivery, high quality consistency about running and executing a project to a methodological standard. Your platform is looking much more at the precursor kind of strategic decision making that decides which projects to initiate. Is that a fair summary? That's my take.
100%. I entirely agree. I guess the way that I'd vocalize it, which is saying the same thing, is our tool is about making sure that the projects that are delivered are the right projects. Your platform is about then delivering those projects to the best of the organisation's ability through all the great tools that MethodGrid bring to the party.
And how is it built? It's Power Apps, isn't it? The question there.
So exactly. So, and then that's a great question, because we made a conscious decision to have this platform as technology agnostic. And what I mean by that is we made a conscious decision not to make a bespoke platform and to build it in standard industry tools, so that our kind of sales pitch, for want of a better term, mantra is we're not selling IT, we're selling capability. So we've purposefully made it so that it's very accessible. It's built in standard modeling tools and dashboarding tools. We have got, so the way, well, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically, so we've developed a database which sucks in all the data from all of these disparate systems, cleanses all the data, and then brings it up in a really controlled way into these kind of platforms. So yes, it's a simple answer. We've consciously developed it in Power Apps for those very reasons.
I think, my sort of take on where your sort of, special sauce is being applied here, Jeremy, is the sort of the data architecture that you need to sort of ask some of these intelligent questions, and what is the cross-referencing that's getting to the nub of these really key kind of decisions that estate managers will have. I think that's where the real value of your system is, I guess, that where all of the many person years of experience your team has in the topic.
Yeah.
Actually, Rab's getting even more specific now. May I ask which DB you are using?
I'm afraid I would have to take that away and come back to you, Rab. I'm not ducking it. I'm not the technology director within the company. So
Jeremy doesn't know, Rab, is the answer to that one. But I guess, Rab, if you want to follow that down, then Jeremy can kind of speak to his tech lead. And
I'm more than happy to answer it. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah. Good stuff. I'm going to give a couple of seconds just to see if there's any more coming in from the floor. But while we're waiting, Jeremy, anything else on your side that you feel?
I guess the things that I'd finally kind of flag. So and it is, and kind of going back to Rab's questions. One of the real benefits that we see in developing it, the kind of technology that we've used, is we can get these systems up and running in about 10 to 12 weeks. So it is a very fast process where we can really drive in value very early into an organization. So and that was a conscious decision. So because quite often, you buy a big piece of bespoke kind of software and it takes 6 months to implement, and your FD's asking questions about why you're spending all this money without seeing any results and all of those kind of things. So we've gone down that route for a number of really key kind of value reasons. So I guess this is the last thing I'd say on that.
No, got it. I think, again, I'm asking the question sort of a bit of, sort of from a lay perspective, not, having your sort of granularity in terms of this, state's use case per se. But, I think to the point I made earlier, I can imagine that you guys have penned out, a nirvana sort of data environment, of the perfect kind of estate management office. These are the, 55 data sets that you would really need to kind of, be in, total holistic control of your estate. So I guess to give you some questions. Question one, have you done that sort of mapping exercise of what the nirvana would look like? And question two that is linked to it is, what do you typically find when you step into, a kind of, a typical kind of busy estate management office? Does it have 50% of that nirvana, 10%? How much of your sort of onboarding exercise is essentially, encouraging the building of data sets that don't previously exist?
So and that's a good question, Dom. So to answer the first bit, yes, we've kind of mapped out, as you say, that nirvana, what good looks like. So the first thing we do with every organisation is we go in and do what we call a data maturity assessment, where we go in and the first thing we do, and we can do this as a standalone service just to so people can understand their own data organisation better. We go in, we map what data they've got. We look at the not just the quality, the quantity, but also the quality of it. So, how valid is that data set? How rich is it? Is it coming from live sources? Is it very old? All of those kind of things. And we provide as a first step a discrete standalone data assessment report, which goes through exactly those kind of issues. To go on to what we tend to find. Nowadays, with modern kind of ways of working, you can't actually run an estate safely without having quite a lot of data. So most organisations, if not, well, all of them that we've found at the moment, do have some form of condition surveys, because if they don't know the condition of their surveys, they don't know whether, quite frankly, they're going to kill someone tomorrow because the distribution board's going to blow up and all of those practical estates type things. They will have some sort of maintenance schedule to understand broadly how they're going to maintain. They might not discreetly be capturing carbon data, but they have energy bills. Again, though, the energy bills might only be for a group of buildings, they might not be for individuals. So again, and this comes to the maturity of the data. So I guess it's a rather long answer to say that we haven't yet found an organisation that we can't derive value instantly from their data sets. Some organisations do, however, have a larger journey and that's what we start to work with them. We've actually got a data maturity roadmap, which goes through how you can then, because it's a journey. They won't do it overnight, because quite often with data maturity, you actually need organisational change, going back to your points about the human side, because otherwise they'll just have this data that won't get captured properly, they won't manage it and store it properly. So it is a bit of a wider piece, but that's something that we definitely work with the clients about.
No, fantastic. Yeah, clearly it will be a never-ending journey, I'm sure, for many of them. Super interesting. I don't think we've got any other questions. Just let's have a pause there just to see. It looks like, it looks like that's it. So we may finish slightly premature of the hour, Jeremy, but just to say from my side again, a huge thank you. We've had the privilege of working closely together for many years now. As I say, one of the sort of partners of Method Grid, and certainly in the context of large complex estate management, I think anybody watching this, is curious. Then we always enjoy working with the Provelio team. So we would recommend you have a chat with Jeremy and his colleagues without hesitation. But no, Jeremy, I don't know if you've got anything else to sign off with, but
no, just thanks for holding this event. It's been great to kind of talk through what we're doing. We've touched on the kind of there is a real segue into making sure that the projects are kind of created in the right way to really drive value into the business. But then there's obviously the whole piece around delivering them well, which you guys do so well. So no, I think that the relationship is a really exciting one moving forward.
No, absolutely. No, hugely exciting what you guys are up to. Wish you all the very best with it. And let's keep in touch.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.